Silent Hill 3 is not only the third game to expand on the mythos and overall experience that is Silent Hill as a place, but it also was our first indication that storylines don't always end after one entry. Up until this point, Harry and James' stories were two very separate experiences narratively and symbolically, with the sinew binding them together being the locale. Of course, we've also already talked about the similarities between the two when it comes to Yamaoka's score and sound design. When Silent Hill 3 released and it was quickly made clear our heroine was actually Cheryl from the first game, now in her teenage years, it effectively announced maybe no one's stories are done. Perhaps James could show up again one day with Laura and we could see an update on their lives. We're stating the obvious here, but I want to step even further away from that idea and do what we love to do on this channel, and that's look at how else this game announces it's part of the franchise. While it's easy to glean Silent Hill 3 is effectively a sequel to the first game narratively, what else tells us that? On this episode, let's discuss Silent Hill 1 and 3 with the connective tissue that makes this channel run: music. As we've learned previously in our deconstruction of the original game, that score relied heavily on ambient sounds mixed with industrial sound effects, creating a musical experience that jives much more with the gameplay than just easy listening. There's something very old world about it, as if the music was channeled from somewhere at the beginning of time, where instruments didn't even exist, which fits nicely with the religion-centric storyline. Of course, as Yamaoka grew as a composer, so did his tastes and approach to the games. Silent Hill 2 introduced more melodies and recognizable tunes to give the atmosphere more life and tie characters closer together. Silent Hill 3 does a very similar job, but the difference is how expertly it melds Yamaoka's aesthetic from the first two games together. Most, if not all of the tracks, lean toward a steady beat or ambient sound that bleeds into a melodic theme that comes almost out of nowhere, almost like jazz. Take the track Breeze in Monochrome Night, for example, which begins with a long segment of distant, calming sound, as if staring up at the sun while underwater, only to jump into a beat that gets overlaid with a beautiful piano, but it doesn't stop there. It just keeps unraveling into a lead piano overlaid on a new piano verse, then back into a beat. Not only is this a revolutionary way of creating a score for a game, but it also accomplishes much more on an intellectual level. Apart from being just a wonderful song that fits beautifully in with the feeling of the game, there are some interesting symbolic choices here. This game is all about teenage Heather, coming to grips with her upbringing and tie to Silent Hill, and apart from the story itself tying the two games together, Yamaoka did some wonderful narrative play with the score here. By using those familiar Silent Hill 1 sounds and ambient tracks and adding them to a more modern beat and melody, it actually sounds like the old world clashing with the new. Essentially, this is the same approach of the narrative struggle in the story, which pits Heather against this religious past she seemingly can't escape. Yamaoka is, very subtly, adding to that narrative on a musical level. In the song Stray Child, what begins with what sounds like creatures moaning and metal dragging across some hidden corner of the town flows into a distinct beat that, for a lack of a better word, just sounds cool. We have two forms of narrative here: the town itself, with its sound and devices on one side that we learned from Silent Hill 1, and then the cool, young Heather with her steady beats and ethereal melodies. Then, about a quarter of the way through the track, they clash, and we get a new take on the song. But it isn't complete cacophony, it actually works wonderfully. This formula actually works for most tracks in the soundtrack, continually proving just how ingenious Yamaoka can be when it comes to musical complexity. So, while the music gets nice beats and hummable melodies, there's that constant addition of Silent Hill 1 sounds, reminding us as players that this is not a story about any average teenage girl, but one who is tortured by her fate. It's gothic, it's romantic, it's terrifying, all wrapped in one. In the past, we identified the Silent Hill 1 soundtrack as a companion piece to the town itself, whereas Silent Hill 2's music lended itself to the various characters in the town. Well, this time, it's all about Heather, and looking from the music from this perspective has created a skewed view of how I interpret the music when I hear it. When I listen to Silent Hill 1 tracks, I remember how impressive the gameplay and texture use was. Silent Hill 2 gives me pause to remember the strong cast of interesting characters searching for their own salvation. But Silent Hill 3 soundtrack reminds me of the deep struggle Heather has of navigating a past that won't let her go. This is just a simple reason of why Silent Hill 3 is such a strong entry, and on the next episode we'll decode the music video I made a while back. Thanks so much for watching, and on a technical note, I'd love to hear feedback in the comments on how you enjoyed the visuals of this episode. Is gameplay enough, or do you feel like more precise cutting to various imagery is better? I'd love to hear what you think. Oh, and if you haven't done it already, please subscribe.